This podcast may contain explicit language. I'd like to dedicate this to my grandpa, who showed me these moves. Little Miss Sunshine is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
Wow, yeah. And I'm Dana Duncan.
Would you like to start the season off any better with a throat clearing here? I mean...
Well, I wasn't clearing my throat. That's the problem.
So... anybody that would like to contribute to your favorite Gmote podcaster and give Dana some Dayquil or something. Yeah, I guess we'll be taking donations. I'll leave a phone number on the bottom of the screen here, like one of those infomercial type things. Please call in. That type of thing. Yeah, okay. Tonight for our 295th episode, we discuss the dark comedy Little Miss Sunshine from 2006, celebrating its 20th anniversary. Directed by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris, written by Michael Arndt, cinematography by Tim Scherstedt, music by Michael Dana, editing by Pamela Martin, starring, and this is actually a pretty good cast, all things considered here. We have Greg Kinnear as Richard, Toni Collette as Sheryl Hoover, Steve Carell as Frank Ginsberg, Paul Dano as Dwayne, Abigail Breslin as Olive, Alan Arkin as Grandpa, and Bryan Cranston as Stan Grossman. Little Miss Sunshine debuted at the Sundance Film Festival on January 20th, 2006, making this its 20th anniversary. On a reported budget of $8 million, the film would gross over $101 million, finishing 59th at the worldwide box office for 2006. Critics were very laudatory at the time, and despite comedy often going overlooked at the Oscars, Little Miss Sunshine managed to be nominated for 4 different Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Supporting Actress for Abigail Breslin, while winning for Original Screenplay for Michael Arndt and Supporting Actor for Alan Arkin. The film was turned into a brief stage musical in 2011 and 2013, and it currently holds a 91% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, an 80 score on Metacritic, and a 4.2 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Now, of course, we can't do this by ourselves, so we bring in our celebrity returning guests. First up, we welcome back our European correspondent for the Revisionist Almanac, now on the Movie Archer Network, making her 3rd appearance on the show to date, the Question Queen Supreme. Please welcome back Heather Stewart.
Hello. Your soundboard is working again. Wasn't last time I was on.
Oh, was it off? I guess I can't remember.
Yeah, you had there's a little blip for a couple of weeks. Yes.
Oh.
So I got my applause this time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, we'll just leave it at that. But did I pronounce it right this time? That's the most important part.
Yeah. It's fine.
It's fine? Okay. Aggressively fine?
It's just your accents. We just have different accents. Let's just all live with it. You also can't pronounce the words like, Daniel Craig or something like that. It's fine. We're different.
That's fair enough. You can take our lives, but you can't take our freedom. No.
Good Lord. No.
Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah, but it was probably just as good as Mel Gibson's. So.
Well, that's why I was imitating it.
Yes, you were the American imitating the Australian, imitating the Scots. Got it. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, that's how it's done.
Yeah, it's very meta.
Anyway. Yeah, of course. We also welcome back our other returning celebrity guest, our most frequent guest, making her record 20th appearance on the show to date, the Midwestern matriarch of movies. Please welcome back Christine Duncan.
So this makes it officially 20?
Apparently, I must have miscounted somewhere along the line and miscredited you because I thought you were at like 18. And then So
thought it
there's
was-
this new thing in our software for Captivate where if I go into the episodes tab and I just type a name, it now will show everything and it will say the counter, so I don't have to individually count them myself.
Mhm.
So it was at 19. This will be 20.
Okay. Well, great. Since I already awarded myself my merch, we're good.
You did?
Yeah, this is my jacket. I got my jacket.
Your
I thought
jacket.
that was for 15.
Well, okay. So now
I don't
owe
know. I
myself
lose count
something
because
more?
you don't follow the strict rules that everybody else does. They get just awarded what we decide they want to be awarded, and you just decide to go off on your own and do your own thing.
Well, I got to try it first. I'm the guinea pig.
Yeah, except you didn't want to do a T-shirt, so you went and got yourself a polo, which then
Well,
became
okay,
15.
so maybe I'll go do a t-shirt now.
Okay. So the jacket thing is 20 now? Because
Yeah.
we do have a
guess
couple
so.
of people that will be vying for that in the near future.
Mm,
I think we
I
need to
really
stop
like
at
it.
like 20.
yeah, probably. I really like it. So, yeah.
You must be having it on right now because we can't really see on the video. Oh, okay. So now you've
Mm.
displayed it for the video in an audio primarily
Nice.
medium.
There you
So
go.
if you're not watching the YouTube video, she's currently displaying it. So, all right. Yeah. Okay. But welcome back to both of you. Mom, you have not been on for a few weeks since we did, I believe, The American President with Adam. Is that sounds right? And Heather, you were last on for Requiem. So it's been a couple of months for you both. What's been happening for each of you?
Well, yes, officially now part of Revisionist Almanac team, as you mentioned. You announced it on the Requiem episode, and again, in fact, now official from the 1st of January. So that's good. We've just been recording our first pieces of content as a team with Andrew and with Amanda. We'll have, I don't quite know when everything is scheduled for, or and I think this is coming the 14th of January, so that's around the time of I just recorded a Ray Fiennes top 10 performances to tie in with the release of 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, and also just a kind of a award season predictions episode, because Andrew loves predicting Oscars, as you know, it's his favorite thing to do. So Amanda and I are I think probably a little bit more into that. But yeah, so we just recorded that. That'll be coming out. And yeah, various guest appearances on other podcasts and more of that coming up this year. So yeah, it's actually been quite busy. And then there was all the Christmas and New Year of it all. So yeah. Oh, and I was supposed to be doing a day job as well. So it's been busy.
When does anybody have time for that?
I know, right? It's so rude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Day job
Mhm.
interrupting with movie watching and everything.
Mm.
And so we've been working here as a family on our dinner and a movie. And so Thomas and I put together menus for the dinner and a movie podcast, which we tape on Monday night. And so we've been fixing food and cocktails and watching various movies. I know that he had those all advertised. And so, in fact, tonight we have 2 more movies and dinners left. Tonight we have Bourguignon a la Julia Child and the movie Julie and Julia that we'll be watching. It's been a fun holiday putting all of the menus and drinks together. Our daughter is a bartender, so she's been working on those and doing a good job with those. And when I guess I am the Sue bartender when she's not available. So yeah, we've done, I don't know how many dinners and movies, Tom, have we done? We tried to do 2 a day during the Christmas holiday because we didn't actually have our Christmas until yesterday, on New Year's Day. So
I
how many
don't know
we've done
the total number. I would guess it's somewhere around like 12 or so.
yeah. And I know we have today and tomorrow left. So I know tomorrow Sarah and I are making homemade fresh pasta, cheese ravioli with Italian sausages, and we have a movie then too. I'm trying to remember which one it is.
David Lean's Summertime.
Oh yeah, summertime. So, and I've actually enjoyed rewatching a few movies, and I've seen a lot of movies in the last couple weeks that I've never seen or heard of. So it's been an interesting holiday season, and I'm excited about the podcast on Monday night.
Yes, so we're pre-recording this, and by this point in time, if you're listening to this episode and you did not catch our live episode on Monday the 5th, then you can definitely go back and find that on our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@gmode podcast, and get all of our opinions, reactions to the various food, cocktails, other things that we tried during all of this. I think on a personal level, during the 5-day break that I had from work, and technically school, because right now, as we're recording this, I haven't started school. By the time this comes out, I unfortunately will be starting school back up. But in this space, we're not going to think about that. But I think I logged 15 movies in 5 days, so that's not bad. That's near Voldemort levels of movie watching, since he must not be named on this show anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're here to discuss Little Miss Sunshine. This is kind of an irreverent comedy that got some awards attention, definitely overperformed at the box office relative to its budget at the time. But obviously we know that major awards have overlooked comedies. Comedies was frankly relatively overlooked, although I think if we expand what the definition of a comedy is, we had a lot more on the CLP list in totality than I think people might think, especially when I was like Pulp Fiction and Inglourious Bastards and Fargo are not your traditional comedies, but I did put them in the comedy genre. But when we think about straight comedies, or let's say family comedies or something to that effect, where this maybe generally fits in, the awards are not kind to looking fondly at comedies. It seems somewhat beneath them. They would much rather go to the period pieces and the war dramas and all the heart-wrenching stuff first. I don't know why. I tend to gravitate more towards comedy and feeling good than that, but if they're going to get over their hump with horror, maybe eventually they'll get over their hump with comedy. But why do you think maybe some other factors that might have contributed towards why comedies are not necessarily seen by critics and the general population as part of the best movies that we've ever produced?
I think because of the serious nature of, I guess, the Academy, they don't look at anything that's not serious in movies. So comedy is the stepsister.
It's a matter of taking themselves too seriously. For a long time, you couldn't get nominated if you were a color film. Everything that was substantial was black and white, because there was this weird thought process that colored films were not serious artistic films. And instead of taking, they take themselves too seriously. Instead of looking at the quality of a film, they're too busy looking at the alleged artistic expression of the film. And so anytime a comedy comes up, they can't look at it objectively. They have to consider it, well, that's not serious art.
I let me just jump in here. One thing that I will say, it is so hard to judge comedy, because whether you want to say anything objectively, everybody even judges the dramas on a subjective basis. You might be able to step back and say this is a quality, well-made film in some of the technique and some of the other things, but for the most part, people judge films. When we go to the Oscars and our Oscar previews, it's always based on what movie connected with me the most, or what performance did I seem to get the most out of, or how did it emotionally connect with me? And because comedy is so subjective, I hold myself as the pronounced comedy snob on this show. I think it's really hard to get anybody to universally say, this is a great comedy, and thus why we can't all put it on a pedestal in the way that we would with some dramas.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, the comedy expert and lover, as you know, favorite genre, I agree. I think that with the comedies, is the ones that I like are the ones that you just, you mentioned. Something like a Fargo, I think is hilarious, but it's not your traditional comedy. There's a darker side to it. And I would argue, and we'll come to this, the same with Little Miss Sunshine. There's kind of deeper themes to it, if you will, that are kind of more obvious. And as you said, it's very subjective. And I think, yes, we also look at dramas subjectively, and do we relate to it? Do the themes resonate? We do that. But I personally get more annoyed and write off a comedy quicker. I mean, I'm guilty of doing it if I don't find it funny. And I have a strange sense of humor. And if I don't find something funny...
Hold on. You have a sense of humor?
I do, but it's a strange one, which is why you don't realize.
Oh, okay. I mean, I was about to ask why you volunteered for another comedy.
See, look at me. I just do comedies. Life of Brian, this one, Requiem for a Dream, hilarious. All of it. No, I have to broaden my mind. But, yeah, so it annoys me more with something that somebody classes as a comedy, and I'm sitting there going, but I don't find this funny. So therefore, I might write it off and be like, this is stupid. It's harder for me then to appreciate as I do with a drama. I might look at it, like I just watched Hamlet recently. It didn't work for me. I am so sorry. I feel terrible. I have no heart. It didn't work, but I am able to sit there and see what other people appreciated in it and are getting out of it. That's harder for me to do with a comedy that I did not find funny in the slightest. So again, that's a me problem more than anything else, but that might also explain the Academy's resonance. And I would say that comedies do get a bit more, and it's the case for this one, they do get a bit more recognition in the screenplays, original screenplays. That's where you'll find them. You know, this one or a Juno or Fargo or whatever. That's where Fargo did win other as well, but that's where they're winning the awards or at least getting nominated.
I suppose Knives Out was nominated for original screenplay too.
Which, by the way, I find funny. So I do
there
find
are so many
funny.
Films that have certain levels of quality, even if you don't necessarily find them funny, that you should pick up on it. Or I can name two offhand that are completely different that should have at least gotten better recognition than they did. One would be This Is Spinal Tap, the original. And the other is Mrs. Doubtfire, just from the sheer presence of Robin Williams.
Robin Williams okay, I'll go out on a limb here. If you're going to do that, and in 1993, I did not cover that year, he should have been nominated for Best Actor. I'm sorry. And he probably should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for Aladdin. Sorry, not sorry. But that aside, Little Miss Sunshine, what are our personal attachments to this? Mom, have you seen this movie before?
I had seen it before. It took me a while to recognize it because I think I saw it shortly after it came out, but I don't know in what context. So it had been a really long time since I'd seen it. I recognized different scenes. Dana, do you remember when I might have seen it?
Yes. We rented it because it was recommended. We watched it at home. This would have been 2006. So were you in college at that time, Tom?
No, I would have been 16.
Okay. We watched it at home. Okay. I'm pretty sure we had, or Sarah said she watched it with me. And I do remember watching it at home. I don't remember who was there or who wasn't there. I don't know if maybe you were gone out or at a basketball game or whatever, but I know we watched it at home. And the last scene, you were so flummoxed by it that you just kept going,
Yes, there's a very famous thing that goes on in our family that if you haven't listened to enough of our episodes before, my mother can't remember most of the films that she's ever seen. There are certain ones that she knows or she swears she's seen that she's never seen, such as claiming that she saw Call Me By Your Name, but couldn't tell me what the peach scene was. So,
okay, then you have not seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, whereas with me, it's just the opposite. She'll say, I've never seen it. Yes, we watched the movie. We went to the theater together. It was on a Saturday night, and that was the night that this happened or this happened. And, so I've got wide detail of what things were on most of these.
And you're getting worse with this, too. You will claim that you haven't seen movies that you have, and you've also claimed that you haven't seen movies or have seen movies that you haven't. I caught you on air last year.
I knew I'd seen this film, and I remembered when we were watching it that I had seen this before, and I've seen clips or scenes in other things, or in memes, or something along the way.
I swear that I watched this in like 2007 on like HBO or something, where I caught it after the fact or recorded it or whatever, because we had TiVo for probably about 2-ish years by this point. We got it about the time that we moved in, so maybe it was even like 3 or 4. But this was like when I watched everything that was in theaters. For an example, okay? Can any of you guess what the top 10 for 2006 in the worldwide box office was? Any of the top 10?
What did The Departed do?
So The Departed was 14th.
Which we saw at the theater.
You guys saw at the theater. I was not old enough yet for that. Just for your own sanity, here are some of the ones that are 20 through 11 here. The Holiday was at 19. The Breakup, which I saw in theaters, was 18. Borat was 15. Click was 17. The Pursuit of Happiness, which I saw in theaters, was 13. The Devil Wears Prada was 12. So here's the top 10. Happy Feet, Superman Returns, which I saw in theaters. Mission Impossible 3, which I saw in theaters. X-Men The Last Stand, which I saw in theaters. Cars, which I saw in theaters while we were on vacation in Europe, and so I saw it with Hungarian subtitles.
Yes.
That was an experience. It was in English, but it was with Hungarian subtitles. Night at the Museum at number 5, which I saw in theaters. Casino Royale, which I saw in theaters. Ice Age 2, The Meltdown, which I've never seen. The Da Vinci Code, which was a huge book for me at the time, was the number 2 movie of the year. And I saw that in theaters because I made sure I was going to go to it because of how much that book meant to me when it came out about 2003, 2004, and I read it multiple times. And number 1 was Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, the second movie after Black Pearl, which was the only one to cross the $1 billion mark that summer. So I saw 7 or 8 of those top 10 in theaters, and I caught probably most of the rest of these after the fact. So out of 2006, I've probably seen, I would guess, 80% of these movies, because at the time, they were just much more of a cultural staple in my life, in my conversations, and everything else. And as much as movies still matter to me, they just I don't see nearly that level to where I'm seeing 40 out of the top 50 anymore in a given year. I'm just not. If I get to 20 or 25 for like 2025, that's an accomplishment. I just don't watch all the crap anymore.
So you were 16, right, at the time? That totally ties up, though, because if I look at my movie watching like experience and when I saw most things of everything, that's just what I did. I was like living at the cinema. It would also been, 93, 94 here, do the maths. Yeah, and because there was nothing really else to do. I mean, that's what you did at the weekend. You were too young to go out in the town, or I was too young to be allowed to go up to London necessarily by myself, also like in the evening. You just get dumped off at the mall and the cinema was there. So you did a bit of shopping, went to see a film or two. That's just what you did. Yeah, that totally adds up.
When we did Revisionist and we did 1982, I made a list of 48 movies for 1982, and I had seen 34 of them in theaters.
Yeah.
And I had seen another 10 on HBO when they were released.
I did not see this in theaters, but it's about as close to it as you could get, where, again, I saw just about everything. But these days I have to be much more choosy and selection heavy over what I have to watch, because my time is much more limited than it was in 2006.
Welcome to adulthood.
I guess. Maybe this is just my plea for nostalgia of my youth. Heather, when was the first time you saw this film?
Yeah, I've just been thinking about that. And I was talking to my husband about it the other day, and I was like, I feel we saw it together. And I was trying to convince him that we saw it in the cinema together. He has no recollection of it, though, which doesn't actually mean that much. But I then told him the story So you need to get him with the story. He doesn't remember his actors' names. He doesn't, that's not him. But he will remember if he's seen he'll remember a plot. And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, we definitely went to cinema quite a lot in that time, And like, no, because we definitely went to see Bond, and there was a bunch of other ones you mentioned there that we went to see. And so I was convinced I saw it at cinema. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I saw it like on TV when it came out, but it was fairly shortly after its release. And I've caught it a couple of times since then when it's been on television. But I haven't seen it for a long time when then rewatching for this.
So this is only the second time that I've seen it. I completely forgot in the 20 years since I've seen this movie how relatively short it is. It is a really quick 95 minutes. When people tell me something's like 100 or 105 minutes, it feels so much longer than this 95 minutes for some reason. I don't know what that extra 10 minutes does, or maybe it's just the other films that I'm watching that are 100 or 105, but I looked up and I was already like 70 minutes into this, and I'm like, where did that go?
Well, there's some movies that just seem longer.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ebert. There is no good movie that can be long enough, and there's no bad movie that can be short enough. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But what is the movie about?
Silas.
It's about supporting through family.
Okay.
The first note I made was identity and belief in yourself, whatever that may be.
And I have that even fractured families or families who seem somewhat dysfunctional have love, and that no family is perfect, that we're all imperfect in some way, and that there's some human connection between us all as family. There's a thread running through that during times of difficulty, regardless of the relationship, you pull together as family just for the simple fact you're family.
I think it's significant in the fact that Alan Arkin is Rig Kinnear's father, and Steve Carell is Toni Collette's brother. So family can also be in-laws.
Right.
Because it's not a matter of the actual genetics as much as the bond that can exist through family or through relationships.
Yeah. Or Paul Dano, he's the stepson. Yeah.
I don't remember where I heard this the first time, but somebody I want to say it was Master of None, but I could be wrong. Somebody said something to the effect of, if you want to know how good a relationship is, take a road trip. Because there's this like weird bonding that happens while you're so in a confined space together for possibly obscene amounts of time, where you have to like get along. And so that requires a certain level, I don't know, the stress of traveling and all the other stuff that goes with it seems to either bond or fracture groups of people. And in this particular case, and a lot of road trip movies kind of find the bonding, we very rarely see the road trip movie that fractures people, because I just don't know if we're necessarily interested in that as an audience. I would be curious to see if somebody actually did produce something like that. But you think about Road Trip or Euro Trip or any of these other ones, it's people bonding over their various foibles and coming to the end of it, seeing each other for something else. And in this particular case, it's a family that all kind of came together through random means. The grandpa, the uncle who tried to kill himself, the son who is apparently a big fan of Friedrich Nietzsche. I dare say I probably mispronounced that, but it doesn't really matter because there's so many pronunciations of it. You have all these random people thrown together, and they have to pull in one direction because they all want to be supportive of the one person in the family they all like and support and get along with, which is the daughter, who it's her, for some unknown reason, lifelong dream to be a beauty queen. Okay.
Yeah. Lifelong. She's 7, but yeah. I mean.
So, Dad, you have our plot summary ready for us.
I do. Little Miss Sunshine is a comedy drama about the Hoover family, a group of very different people trying to support one another. When young Olive Hoover, Abigail Breslin, qualifies for the Little Miss Sunshine pageant. Her parents, motivational speaker Greg Kinnear, and stressed but caring Sheryl, Toni Collette, decide the whole family will travel with her from New Mexico to California. They pile into a rundown yellow van that becomes the setting for both humor and tension. Along the way, Olive's foul-mouthed grandfather, Edwin, Alan Arkin, her depressed uncle, Frank, Steve Carell, and her silent, angry teenage brother, Dwayne, Paul Dano, each face their own struggles. As the trip goes wrong in unexpected ways, the family learns that winning is not as important as sticking together. The film balances comedy and emotion to show how love and acceptance can come from even the most imperfect family.
Thank you, Dad. Did you know Michael Arndt had to quit his job as What Celebrity's assistant to write Little Miss Sunshine? Anyone want to take a guess? I can give you a hint, Dad. It's somebody you're no longer a fan of. After your, let's say, personal encounter with him.
Oh, really? Okay. Matthew Broderick.
That is correct.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think much of him either.
Yeah.
The movie story is inspired by an event from Michael Arndt's childhood where his family drove 600 miles in a VW bus with a broken clutch. So all of that part of the movie must have really happened. And frankly, it's so odd and irreverent that you would have thought it came from real life.
Although I did read there was a few people saying, well, actually, with you can only start in the third gear and all this kind of thing. Saying, well, actually, that's not quite true because you could still put it into first and you could, whatever. Okay, they did it with third and fourth gear, but,
Okay.
We don't know what Michael went through.
There's always somebody who's a naysayer, right?
Yeah.
Something
The
like that.
actually crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know the production crew made sure Abigail Breslin really was listening to her music in her headphones to keep her from hearing Alan Arkin's profanity-laced scenes?
Yeah. I read that. What, I was thinking, because when it popped up and I was rewatching it, popped up that it was here like a 6+, which is basically like a U or a PG rating. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought there was like rules with how many times they could say the word like fuck or something to get that particular rating. So I didn't check what the American rating was, but they were showing on my version of Disney Plus, they were saying 6+. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I don't mind, whatever, but like it surprised me a bit. So I don't know.
It is rated R here. So it
there
is
we go.
restricted
Yeah,
to
because they had
17.
those number of expletives in there.
Well, not just the expletives, but then there was the whole talk about
there was the drug stuff. Yeah.
having sex with, lots of women and, talking a lot of promiscuity, and then the magazines. So,
and to be fair, in 2006, when this originally came out, anything suggestive of homosexuality was also frowned upon broadly and would have been placed in a general R category. I mean, we had, I think, 35 of 50 states that had passed constitutional amendments banning homosexuality or homosexual marriage in this country in 2006, which we made a watershed basically turn from about 2008 to 2010. So nobody really saw that coming, but in context, it makes a little bit more sense. And frankly, Americans have always been prudes compared to just about anywhere else.
Well, yes, I think any kind of showing of female breasts is not a big deal. They have, primetime TV shows here with women jumping about with their breasts while doing quiz shows. So, Europe.
Yeah, American movies in general always have stricter standards than coverage of the White House as far as vulgarity and profanity.
Oh, here we go. Anyway, did you know all of the girls acting as participants in the Little Miss Sunshine beauty pageant, except Abigail Breslin, were veterans of real beauty pageants? They wore the same costumes, including hair and makeup, and performed the same talent routines as they had in their real-life pageants. I gotta tell you, that was the most cringy part of this entire movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then if you look at the murder of John Benet Ramsey or whatever, she's pictured the same way. So
Okay, I don't know what
It's so
you mean to say.
creepy.
It was just creepy.
I know. I would
Creepy,
never do
yeah.
that to my daughter. Yeah.
It's weird to objectify them when they're in their teens. When they're doing it as preteens, whole other ballgame.
Thing is, what I'd like to also know, like that, because I read this snippet as well, is like girls and their parents and everything. Did they realize that they were signing up for something that was basically really like ripping the piss out of these shows and showing them up and for a bad thing? Did they realize this? Because if they were like contestants in pageants before, they must have been bought into the whole idea and all nonsense of the thing. So that's what I was wondering when I read that.
I don't know.
A lot of them are just there because they want their children to become actresses.
Yeah.
For the most part. So if you give them an opportunity, even if it is making fun or a parody of the performances they were doing, if they have a chance to be in a film,
True.
the parents are going to push for it.
True.
It just
Good
felt
point.
very Epstein adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know Abigail Breslin wore a fat suit for this part?
I figured.
Yeah. And I was reading a commentary on this, and they say, or listening to something, and they were saying, oh, surely they could have offered it to some naturally chubby girl. And I think I don't know what you think about this, but I think it's like, surely, she would have loved the opportunity too. And I disagree, because I think Abigail Breslin went to that knowing she is thinner than that. If you put a real chubby person in there and you say, hey, you're chubby, and you're making them out to be chubby, that is what they're going to be told, and they're going to remember that, and that performance is going to be on screen forever. So I feel very differently about that. I don't know how you think about it.
I completely agree.
I do too.
When it comes to the mental health of young women, don't put them in a position where it's objectifying them for the entire world to see, where it's basically commemorated in print for as long as they're going to be around.
And that's
just
the
not
point of the performance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, good. Okay.
All right. There were two original choices to play Frank, which is Steve Carell's part. Now, I will remind you, this is when this was made in roughly 2005. This was before 40-Year-Old Virgin had come out. This was before The Office had debuted. So the only real part other than The Daily Show that he was known for was as the guy in Anchorman. So who were the other two original choices to play that character of Uncle Frank? Dad, do you have any guesses? Both are comedy stars.
I have more than guesses I know. So I'll let our guests make
Mom,
guesses.
One is from Saturday Night Live, near the original crew, if not the original crew. I'm not as familiar with that period.
I don't know. Colin
He was
Farrell?
the replacement after the first year.
Okay. Who did you say?
I said Colin Farrell.
No, I don't think Colin Farrell, this would have been in his wheelhouse to play that at this time. I think you're thinking more of Will Ferrell, but...
Okay, yeah, maybe so.
So the first original choice was Bill Murray, and the second choice was Robin Williams. Robin turned down the film in favor of doing the other road trip film, RV.
Bad choice, but still. Bill Murray replaced Chevy Chase after the first season of SNL.
Okay. And finally, did you know Michael Arndt, who wrote the Oscar-winning screenplay for Little Miss Sunshine, used the supporting character named Stan Grossman as a tribute to Fargo, another Best Original Screenplay winner.
Yep. Picked up on that. I was like, heard that. Yeah.
And if you have not, I would definitely go back. If you like Fargo at all and have not seen the first season of the limited series of Fargo that complements the original movie, do yourself a favor and go watch that. It is possibly, outside of Landman, the best Billy Bob Thornton will ever be. So that looks like a good spot for our first break. We will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 296th episode, we will discuss City Lights from 1931, celebrating its 95th anniversary. Written and directed by Charlie Chaplin, cinematography by Roland Tetherow and Gordon Pollack, music by Arthur Johnston and Alfred Newman. Editing by Charlie Chaplin and Willard Nico. Starring Charlie Chaplin, Virginia Cheryl, Florence Lee, Harry Myers, and Al Ernest Garcia. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Before we jump too much further, I know that my mother has nothing to promote, or do you have something to promote, just so at least I'm not assuming that for you?
So just if they didn't catch our meals and movies, they should go and look for it. We had some fantastic food. You have pictures up in various locations, I know, of some of the things that we created, and I'm pretty proud of what we did.
So, yes, again, in real time, where this is actually debuting on roughly January 14th, you can go back on our YouTube channel and find the live version from January 5th that will be covering all of our various different efforts during the holiday season. But also, Heather, what have you got going on? Where can people find you?
Yep, I'm everywhere at Heather J. Stewart. That's how you say it. And also on the Revisionist Almanac channel as well. And my little reviews are posted on that letterbox, not my own one. But and we've got a ton of content scheduled. As I say, I'm not quite sure when everything's coming out compared to when this one is, but recent ones is kind of a sort of a introduction to 2026 and the new expanded team with me and Amanda Nethington, as well as Andrew. And we've just recorded our Rafe Fiennes top 10, so look out for that. But as I say, I'd also been busy on other podcasts. Fun one I was on recently was on with Film versus Film, where we were comparing whodunits, and that was Gosford Park went up against my choice, Zodiac, and it was closer than I expected. I was really hoping for a slam dunk on that one, but it was not as obvious as expected. But that was fun. That was fun recording that one. And yeah, I've also got we've got a couple in the books for this year coming up, and also with Clarissa from I've seen that one. I think the Heather's episode should be dropping soon, which we recorded a while ago. And I'm recording because I like killing two birds with one stone. We're recording on Zodiac with her as well soon. So that should be dropping, I think, sometime in February.
Now, does Zodiac actually qualify as a whodunit, since you don't know who done it?
Well, Martin, who hosts Film versus Film, and I both said kind of the same. It's exactly. So Gosford Park, I'm not going to say too much if you haven't seen it, but it's less about who done it and more about the class differences between the rich upper class and the work that they do. And you halfway through, the murder has not happened yet. So you're like, well, wait. Oh, and then it happens. And you're like, oh, okay. But nobody really cares. It's like they move on so quickly. It's like, oh, okay. All right. Well, that person was killed. We all hated him. Let's move on.
It's a Robert Altman film. You have to assume I haven't seen it.
It's all about massive ensembles. Exactly. So that was a first time watch for me. So that was fun. I was also quite high on it. And Zodiac, yeah, we also said it's really funny. We're covering two things where the first one, nobody cares who done it. And the second one is you don't know who done it. So yeah, I mean, if you're being pedantic, I don't know if they count, but it was to tie in with the new Knives Out, and that was just some fun, and got me a chance to watch Gosford Park, which I've never done, so that was good first time watch.
Well, Dad, we can look forward to the episode of Gosford Park in 2031.
Can mark me down. I'll come and guest on it again. Killing those birds again.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, we left off at best performance. Dad, who did you have down?
I had Alan Arkin. I think this was Alan Arkin's vehicle that kind of propelled his second wave of his career. I think he was outstanding. He played it for everything. It was quite entertaining, to say the least.
There's a bit of me that is kind of numbed to some of the Alan Arkin effect when you've seen him, because basically he takes this character and he plays it for another 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
Until he finally passes away not too long ago. But he did it in Argo. He did it in the Kaminsky Method. He did it in all sorts of things. And while I enjoy that character every time, this is probably the most non-straight-laced conservative version of this, where he's much more of a hippie and drug taking and all of this other stuff. And so I guess when coming back to this performance in 2006, in context, I'm sure this is a much funnier character, but on revisiting this 20 years later, I'm like, yeah, that's just Alan Arkin doing the same character.
Except that Alan Arkin always was the same character. If you've ever watched Catch-22 with Alan Arkin, he's not that much different. He has the tendency to be this exasperated soul that's constantly yelling and losing his cool. When he did The Russians Are Coming, which was a comedy that he did that was, I think it was done by Carl Reiner to begin with, it's the same thing. He always was a character that portrayed himself as being always losing his cool. And this just kind of went the next level up.
My best performance was Steve Carell. This is before he became the comedy star of that moment in time, but he had not been, and I think to a degree, has still not been recognized as an actually good actor, not just a comedic actor, but a good actor. And while I know he was nominated for Foxcatcher, and a lot of people point to that as like his real dramatic turn, I think he has a lot better dramatic chops in other things that he does. Frankly, I think he's the best performance out of anybody in The Big Short. And so to see him in this kind of role where I guess most of the time you're usually defaulting to somebody who's just like really over the top about being depressed and suicidal and some of these other things. I didn't feel that in this particular movie he's moving too much into that realm where it just becomes like overly saccharine, and instead plays it with a certain level of deftness, but that he can still connect with people. You understand what he's been through to the point where why he's done the things that he's done up to this point, but he's also at least still trying to do his best to still be a part of this group. It's not like he feels off on his own. And so I feel that he's kind of like somewhat of the emotional linchpin of the movie in a way. It's weird that the estranged uncle that only comes in because you have to monitor him so he doesn't kill himself again or attempt to kill himself. He's somehow the emotional background, but I don't know. For whatever reason, he stuck out for me in this rewatch.
I have Abigail Breslin, actually. I think that for a young person to put in that sort of effort, I'm pretty sure she probably played herself in this particular role. You could feel her anxiety. You could feel her change. You could see the wheels turning when she was asking questions at the dinner table. I just thought she did an outstanding job for being so young and to put that kind of effort in. And I just thought she was the best one in there.
I have her listed as my most charismatic. I think she's very affable in this, where much like the rest of the family, and I pointed this out earlier, like their bonding comes through trying to support her because she seems to be or have the highest Q rating among everybody in the family. But that really comes through during the course of the film. She feels so incredibly likable and innocent and whatever else. So the point where Greg Kinnear's character, her dad, like tries to shame her multiple times, it's you feel so bad for her, and that the rest of the family kind of jumps in to try and make her feel better. I think that's part of where the bonding action of this film happens and kind of a natural progression of it. So I think she's very good at just being a kid, being innocent, and being likable. And what else could you want in charismatic there?
I thought I was going to be on an island with Steve Carell. Yes. I'm not. I'm very pleased. Everything you said, Tom, I co-sign. He is the linchpin. He is what brings us into the story in the first place. I know the whole point is because we're going to this pageant with Olive, but he is our audience surrogate in a way. He is, by being there and everybody explaining their relationships to each other, he is what gives us access to that family. It starts with, obviously it starts with introducing all of the characters, but the first characters together, if you don't count Greg Kinnear and Toni Collette speaking to each other in the phone. The first one is Sheryl picking up Frank and hugging him and taking him home to their house. And as you were also saying about Steve Carell, this is before he became who he is today. And, he's playing against type in a certain way. He's playing somebody depressed, and there's times as well when you just look at his eyes and you just see everything he's gone through. You see the suffering that he's had. But then there's these lighter moments. I love when they're first getting the car to start and he's smiling and he says, "Oh, I just want you to know I'm a Proust professor here," and he's pushing the car, and then he gets in and he's jumping and he's laughing, and you see him smile, I think, for the first time. And he says, "Oh, nobody gets left behind." And I don't think you realize it's him. And I only realized in the subtitles that it was him, because it's off camera when you first hear it. And he says, "Nobody gets behind. Nobody gets behind. Nobody gets left behind." And yeah, it's kind of like him starting to, maybe come back to life in a way and start realizing that life maybe is worth living, and that can be the way. And I just think it's a wonderful performance the whole way through. That he really touched me.
Okay. He's my secondary performance. I had him originally as my best, and then I reevaluated. But here's the thing. His character had, because of his attempted suicide, had all of the emotions that he had basically existed stripped away. And what tends to happen is individuals evaluate, see things through rose-colored glasses. Because he had all of this emotional aspect of his life stripped away, he comes into this almost with like total consciousness. He can see everybody around him for who they really are and understand better the relationships of each individual within the setting more than any other person in the thing. And it's because I think the fact that he has no actual emotional feeling himself at that particular time. He is at a low point, and he is trying to build himself back up through the emotional relationships he sees around him. And so he understands his nephew. He understands his brother-in-law. He understands his brother-in-law's father. He sees everybody for who they really are. So to that extent, Carell does a great job in and of itself. It almost as if it would be better, and I probably would have put him better if his part would have been more developed than it actually was. Because he really did not have as much of a baggage or as much heavy lifting as some of the other actors in the film did. I think there was a potential that he could have ended up taking over the film if his character had been a little bit more well written.
See, I disagree there. I generally disagree, because there are the two primary supporting characters in this, Arkin towards Olive and then Carell towards Dano, have very important roles. It is quite clear that the parents are overmatched. They don't seem to be able to, because of probably their own damage and baggage in this movie, able to connect with their children in the way that they should. And it's only after Arkin dies and Kinnear starts paying more attention to his daughter does he kind of become the father that she needed the whole time. But neither of them still understands or tries to understand Dano in any capacity. And he seems to have these theories about life and philosophy and all these other things that really only takes maybe an academic to bring out of him. So in that way, Carell's kind of his surrogate father during the course of the movie, and really is the only one that shows him any care, because Arkin even just like dismisses him as just a weirdo kind of thing. And his mother, like you could tell that Toni Collette still cares for him, but none of them really make an effort to try and bond or connect with him except Carell. And I think that relationship, to me, is probably one of the more rewarding during the course of the film.
He doesn't judge him. That's what I love about him. He's just not judging. Dano tells you, "Oh, you're not talking now." Okay. All right. That's how it is. And then at dinner as well, there's a little bonding. The first dinner, when he's saying to him, is he always like this? And he's like, he's like, how do you put up with it? So the two of them are immediately bonding. And then the first evening where, and Paul Dano's like, please don't kill yourself tonight. And he says, not on my watch. And I really love the dynamic between the two of them throughout the whole film. And I would agree with the, wanting more of Steve Carell. I agree. And he does kind of become less in focus as we move forward. But then they have that one scene as well again, him and Paul Dano, terrible actor, worse than SAG. They have that scene on the boardwalk, and they're talking about, like, I wish I could wake up and I'd be 18. And he's like, oh, but then you miss out on all the suffering, and suffering is what makes you. And it's just a really nice little scene. It's like a bit of a cheesy message, but I think the way that he delivers it, kind of in a Steve Carell way, I don't know if anybody else could deliver it that way. It just works. It works for me. It works for me. And I'm, what I'm like. I'm very cynical. So, yeah. I just really appreciated what he was doing.
And I have Steve Carell as my best secondary performance, because I do appreciate, and you can, like I said, you can feel with the character the bonds that he's creating and the way he goes out of his way to deal with this nephew that nobody else seems to know what to do to deal with. And he has the knowledge, whether from his being a professor or whether his personal experiences, to deal with him. And I like the fact that he's a serious character in this. I think it's unusual now, looking back at his career, to see him in a role that, even though this is a comedy, he's one of the most serious characters, and how he's polarizing for the family, that without him, some of this bonding may never have occurred. So I thought he did an outstanding job.
And by the same extension, I have the weak sauce actor Paul Dano as my secondary, because, again, I really like that relationship between the two of them. And the moment where you get that color blindness or that whole explosion in the middle of the movie, and then eventually them on the pier together, I just like those moments, those small scenes where the two of them are connecting. Probably my most favorite relationship within the film.
Yeah. Well, the critic, I've seen enough of his cameo performances in his own films. He has nothing to criticize Paul Dano about as far as acting abilities.
You mean Mr. QT and his performance in Pulp Fiction? Probably the worst performance in that movie?
By far.
I think his worst that he's done, though, is Django Unchained, and that really dodgy, weird Australian stuff that was going on. That Australian rookie he was supposed to be. Oh,
yeah, that's not much
God.
better. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to come out that Paul Dano turned down Quentin for something, and he's just pissed at him. I think that's what it's going to be.
Whatever. He's actually won the battle by just not saying anything, letting everybody else interpret it.
Yeah. There's so much love for Paul Dano. It was outpouring that week. It was lovely. And he's probably so offline that he had no idea what was going on. I love that for him.
I guess coming back to where he is as an actor and the rest of it, and the support that I would give him in this role, not in any way a traditional lead. And frankly, most of his roles have been supporting in some capacity or another. The only thing before this film that I had known him from was The Girl Next Door, where it's a complete comedy movie. He's the dweeby, large, nerdy friend of Emile Hirsch in that movie. But he is by far probably made the most out of being in something weird like that, a more or less a frat comedy, and then going on to these very dramatic roles and other stuff that, I don't know. I mean, he's had an interesting career. I think he has some directorial work in there, but he's excellent in this movie.
He's just got his own brand of weird and quirky, and he just works. I remember when they did the announcement for him in The Batman, and I said, oh, that is perfect. That is perfect. That is the right kind of weird that we need for that role. And he was great.
He is not,
of course he was.
He is not going to be able to fit the everyman role. He's probably never going to be that like prototypical lead. He's not classically handsome by any stretch, but usually wherever he fits in as a character actor, he has a good eye at picking out parts for himself and has seemed to be able to fit whatever he ends up taking on.
Yep. 100%.
So I already gave my most charismatic. Dad, what did you have?
I had Abigail Breslin. I thought she, as far as the acting, I think she was more a presence in the film than she had to act necessarily, if that makes any sense. I think that she just came across as being the Little Miss Sunshine of the film. She's the bright spot in all of these very complicated, dark, depressed individuals. She's the only one who's upbeat, and she comes across that way.
Yeah, 100%. I also had Paul Dano as my secondary, and I have Abigail Breslin as most charismatic for the same reasons.
So you and I completely
the connecting
aligned.
glue. I know, right? What's going on a comedy?
Yeah.
See? Yeah, it's exactly what you said, Dana. She's the kind of, she's at the center. She's kind of like, yeah, as you said, she's a little sunshine. She's a little sun that they all circle around, and she connects them all, and she is the only one that they all care about. And I think she brings out the best of all of them. I mean, you can argue that maybe somebody who snorts heroin should not be in charge of looking after this kid overnight, whatever. But he brings out she brings out his soft side. He still swears around her, but whatever. But she has music on, so it's good. She's the only one when Paul Dano has his meltdown. She's the one that he's willing to, because she gives him that hug and he knows how important it is for her. He is willing to come back to the family fold. Or, Richard, he's a terrible, terrible father. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of choices he makes just for her, to make her happy. And that's what he wants to do. And I mean, Toni Collette obviously is the Sheryl is the mother. Of course, that's obvious. I mean, that's not so much to go into because she clearly loves her. But Frank, I'm struggling a little bit with the Frank Olive connection. But he goes along for the ride as well, and he joins in the dance at the end, etc. But he's more focused on he's more focused where he's needed, which is Dwayne. But yeah, and she's a little ray of light.
Mom, who did you have?
I have Alan Arkin, just for all the reasons that you guys thought he had the best performance. I just thought he played, in all his inappropriate comments and shocking behavior, was very charismatic in how he carried himself and how he presented as the grandpa. A little unusual, a lot inappropriate, but believable.
Let me just add to that. I actually, I didn't read. It was an audio book I had downloaded. Alan Arkin's memoir from about 4 years before he passed. And the memoir, he wasn't playing a part. That was Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin was like that. He was bizarre. I mean, everything from having these ideas of having people who could faith heal, and I mean, it was an interesting read. Let's just put it that way. If anybody wants to learn anything more about him and how he was and what his life was like, there you go. Get his memoir. It is fascinating as to how this guy thought, acted, and lived.
He lived a life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to best scene then. I have 5 nominees here, and you guys can add any that I missed. I have dinner discussion, which kind of is... It's not the opening of the film, but it's really the one where you get all of these characters really interacting for the first time. I have ice cream, which is the first breakfast while they're on the road. And obviously that describes, I think it's somewhat self-explanatory there. Then I have escaping with Grandpa, where he's passed away and they're sneaking the body out through the window. I have colorblind, which is the scene that I mentioned a little bit ago, where we have that explosion from Dano's character. And then finally I guess more or less the last scene, the talent competition, and she's a super freak. So what did I miss?
I have the one where the cop stops them with the body and he has to open up the trunk and they find the magazines. I thought that was...
Did you not know there was a body there?
He wasn't
He just saw
interested in that when
boobs.
he saw the porn
Yeah,
magazines. It just
exactly.
I
became
guess.
superfluous. The
Wow.
fact that there was
Oh, I
something
like
else back there. He was thinking the guy didn't want to open him because he knew that he had tucked him back there.
I add Am I Pretty? I
Yeah,
think
have one.
that scene between grandpa and granddaughter was worth a mention in and of itself because, and I'll talk more about that as we go through, but I want to make sure that one's nominated.
Yeah, I also, just because it gave me a little bit of anxiety about what was going to happen afterwards, the gas station scene where Frank runs into his former lover partner, and then the other guy who's been a designated genius, is outside in the car. That whole scene, and then the meeting, and then being so concerned for Frank's mental well-being after that, I was like, oh my god, I hope he doesn't have a relapse, stuff like that. So I would mention that one as well.
Okay, so taking all of those into effect here, we have dinner discussion, Am I Pretty, ice cream, gas station meetup, escaping with grandpa, pulled over, colorblind, and talent competition. Out of these, what is the best scene?
For me, it's ice cream or colorblind. I think ice cream reveals a lot about everybody's characters. Richard, asshole again. Also, one of the themes of the body positivity or beauty concepts and what it is to be beautiful, fat shaming, all these topics comes up, and then the fact that they all then group together to show Olive, yes, you can eat ice cream. Hey, we're going to enjoy ice cream. It's great. And what it also reveals about the family dynamic there, and Richard a little bit on the outside, that one. And then I did do a little office poll like you do as well, and I did ask, and people say, oh, there was a scene where somebody has a complete meltdown in a van, and that was one of the things that they remember. And I'm like, yes. And it was one of the first scenes that I always think of when I think of Little Miss Sunshine, is the colorblind meltdown by Paul Dano. So one of those two. I think maybe we can put the colorblind, lock it into most indelible for me, and then we'll take ice cream as best. There you go. I'll do it that way.
For me, I know that there were actually two scenes where ice cream was mentioned. And the second one to me was actually more important because in one sentence, the woman, the beauty queen, healed her. I understand that, but it started with this whole ice cream scene and ended there. So for me, that was a healing moment. And actually, I forgot to nominate it. So for me, that was one of my favorite scenes, only because maybe because I've struggled with my weight or eating my whole life. And for her, then that it didn't matter. She could eat ice cream and she would be okay. So
for me, it's Am I Pretty? That whole concept, which is what it did was it emphasized that grandpa was doing this for her to make her feel special and important. But I think then also what it did was it highlighted that all of the relationships and everything going on in the van ultimately became an issue of supporting each other and supporting Olive in this process. And so to me, that really is the defining moment of the film to me. So that's why I have that as my best scene. As far as my favorite scene.
You gonna skip over me?
Well, you talk enough. So I was just gonna do that and then you could talk for a while. And then for my favorite scene, escaping with grandpa. So now go ahead.
Well, that's my best scene because it is the biggest set piece in the movie. You are carrying the weight of one of the more important characters. And again, in a very limited subset, you have 6 people crammed into a van, and they're pretty much the entire the characters that you're following the entirety of the movie. To eliminate, what would that be? I'm trying to think of what the percentages are of. I'm doing very poor math in the moment here, but basically like 18% of your figure here by eliminating one of the 6 characters. And I know my math is off, but I don't care. Trying to do it in my head is not a good thing. But anyway, eliminating one of the 6 characters, and then you have to have other people replace what is metaphorically happened on screen. So Greg Kinnear's character takes more assertiveness. He tries to become more like his own dad and very much more supportive. So there's all these other things. It's the linchpin by which the movie changes and folds into its second half. The movie completely changes in that moment where the woman from the hospital screams at him and he's trying to support his daughter. He recognizes, I'm going to have to go through some extreme measures, and everybody starts following behind him. And so his growth from that moment forward is what leads to the end of the movie.
I found that scene to be very interesting because I've had to go through the whole death experience several times now in my life. And while you're in it, you're emotionally charged and in grief and all this. And then you look back on it afterwards, it's almost comical as to how certain people behave and certain things that are said and done. And then to watch this in this particular case and take it to the nth degree, it was the most comical moment moments of the entire film.
I mean, you have ready-made things already built in to the comedic structure of the movie, particularly with the whole VW and the clutch thing and all of that entails. Plus, you have one character who's just mute and is able to write snarky comments and just kind of like facially act. So that by itself feels a little bit humorous. But to have this giant set piece in the middle, I think is important to the structure of how the movie is supposed to interact and how everybody's supposed to grow by the end of the movie. By eliminating somebody from the equation, they all have to fill in for his presence that is no longer there. But my favorite scene is the dinner discussion. One, because the Duncan family dinner discussions are infamous. And when the young child asks some of the most simple questions, such as, why did you try to kill yourself? And you were in love with a man? That's silly.
Silly.
I don't know. It was endearing to me.
I think my favorite scene is at the end of that colorblind scene where there's absolutely no speech, no talking. It's just her going down that hillside to meet her brother and just understanding his hurt and just holding on to him. And in turn, then him realizing that he couldn't stand in her way of what she really wanted to do. And so he needed to then be supportive. And I just think everything culminated for those two in that hug. And that was my favorite scene.
Heather?
I think it's also the dinner discussion. Yeah. I like the family dynamics. I like the way it's all built up. There was a couple of laughs in there, but also just Richard just, God, just wanted to slap him. Oh my God. Yeah, I'll say that one. But it's just because everybody's talking through each other as well. Again, very similar to my family when we get together. Just everybody talking at the same time and holding multiple conversations. Very relatable. And yeah, you just really get the characters together and established really, really quickly how they are and what they're like. Does a great job of doing that. So yeah, I really like that one. Can I just say on the escaping with Grandpa, I totally understand what you're hearing, but to me, that was the biggest slapstick moment of the film. So it was, didn't work so much for me, although I completely understand the importance and significance of it. But yeah, a little bit too much slapstick, which is not my favorite.
Most indelible moment, though, to me is either running with the VW or it's escaping with Grandpa. Those are the two things that stuck out to me 20 years on, where I'm like, I remembered enough about the film to understand what was going on. Outside of that, I didn't remember a whole lot about this movie.
Yeah, the VW is the kind of the iconic image from this film, isn't it? With them all running and pushing and everything. I already said with me with the colorblind, that was the main thing that I remembered, that Paul Dano had this thing with being colorblind, and that's why he couldn't become a fighter pilot, and he had a meltdown. And yeah, that was. If you asked me to one moment from the film, that's what I'm going to say first.
And I think it's the "Am I pretty?" moment, because I think every little girl wonders that, and people's answers to that, I don't know if they realize how important they are to a young person. And so I think the carefully worded, soft side of Grandpa really made an impression on me there.
To me,
Oscar clip.
It is the talent competition. It is everybody that's ever been in those situations where you do something that's unconventional and it disrupts everybody else's concept or idea of what is appropriate, is one of those moments where it is a just big fuck you moment. And they all rallied around her for that point. And to me, that's what the movie, the culmination of it was, is everybody was pushing to get to this one concept, this one idea, and you want to go the normal route of uniformity. Everybody kind of fits in this pattern. Well, and you don't. And then everybody tries to ostracize you, and you just, with one big middle finger, just tell everybody, nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to do things the way we think is important. We're going to support each other in doing it.
So I'm not going to save this for remaining questions. We'll just do this here. The legal portion during that scene, that I'm just thinking about it in the back of my mind.
There are three legal portions of this I was going to bring up in the things.
Well, so there's multiple different tort claims in this. Just matter of factly. First off, the security guard grabbing the little girl. I know that he gets offended and he goes to like stop it, but should he have just like let it kind of happen? And then he's got a huge claim right there, because inappropriate removal, of a minor, you're going to get sympathy on every front there. But what are the other issues?
It's a felony.
Well, yeah.
It's a felony. Yeah. No, it's felony. And yes, and the civil liability involved with that would have been 7 figures.
And I was going to say, like, the money damages, not to mention the fact that somehow they were in trouble and they got arrested, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why do they have
that
repercussions?
Made no sense to me. Why were they in the police station afterwards?
Because their behavior was so disruptive, it constituted what would be disturbing the peace or disorderly conduct, which is a misdemeanor. At best.
At best, you could say maybe trespassing.
Well, yes, but
they were in the same space.
That's pushing it. It's disorderly conduct. Okay, but while we're at that point, okay, moving a body, okay, that's border. I don't know what the state of California has, but that's potentially felony charges. Driving through the armatures at the tailgate without stopping is criminal damage to property. Those things are not cheap. That's going to be at least $1,000, which makes it a felony in Wisconsin. I don't know what it would be in California. Not to mention hit and run, which is at least a misdemeanor. And nobody seems to care about any of this because, of course, I'm sure the hospital reported this incident immediately, and yet the police take the car or the body, or the funeral home takes the body out of the car. Oh, he just died en route, and we just continue to drive through the time with Grandpa dead in the trunk.
And can you imagine the smell? That was my thing.
They're in California.
It's not even so much as the smell of him like decaying, but the body loosens up and secretes all of the remaining things that are in the body at the time of death. So he's going to have a lot of leftover things.
He was roasting back there on top.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact is having done criminal defense work and having studied homicides for trial work, I'm estimating there was about 6 to 8 hours difference between time of death and the time the funeral home got him. Rigor mortis is set in.
Mm-hmm.
So
at some point, you're suspending disbelief here.
this has been legal issues with Dana. Since he's not going to do his own damn TikTok series.
I will do it.
Are you sure? Because otherwise we'll just build it into a segment of the show. We'll just hand off the reins. Dana, here, legal analysis of this movie.
Okay, I had another thing that occurred to me during this whole thing, and that is, if your little girl has been practicing for some sort of competition, and you left Grandpa, who's totally inappropriate, showing her moves, what kind of parent doesn't ask your child before you even do that? Why don't you show me what you've been working on?
Care.
That they had no clue that she was doing this type of dance is beyond for me, it's mind blowing. I would never have let my kids go on and perform something I hadn't seen.
That's untrue. When I was a minor, there are multiple times in where I performed at something that you had no idea what I was going to do or be a part of, and several things that were just goofy or, borderline appropriate, such as the variety show we did while we were in high school, and we basically did the weekend update version where we came in as the sports anchors, and I didn't want to do it, but somebody thought it'd be funny. We came in our underpants. We had no pants on.
I think it's because I thought you were supervised. I thought you were supervised by school personnel that I trusted.
Well, and here's the thing. They
really
gave carte blanche to Grandpa in this setting he taught all the moves.
That was just wrong.
Well, when you offload the care of your children, you can't be upset with some of the potential consequences. But that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, during our break, Gmote did a few live episodes on our end-of-year recap / Season 8 scheduling, our James Bond ranking series, and our Gmote Duncan Family Holiday Menu Extravaganza. If you missed those episodes, don't worry. Your favorite movie family is still available to view on our YouTube channel at Gmote Podcast. We are planning our next series of live episodes, including our Oscars preview again this year, so stay tuned. However, those are only available on our YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any Gmote episodes. All right, let's move to best funniest lines. Let's see here. My first one up here, I have Grandpa. A real loser is someone who's so afraid of not winning they don't even try.
Grandpa. Jesus, I'm tired. I'm so fucking tired. You know how tired I am? If a girl came up to me and begged me to fuck her, I couldn't do it. That's how tired I am.
Now, I know this is supposed to be a funny moment in the film and whatever, and just offhanded because it's supposed to be crude, but this is the kind of suggestive behavior that my own father would have at our own dinner discussions. So,
Would he also talk about his Lord Johnson?
Not directly. He was a little more subtle than this, but it still was out there.
Well, okay, and you just seem to be carrying that tradition on because I was cringing yesterday, so...
Well, I mean, I was not the one who brought up the dating game that you and Sarah had originally wanted to play, but if you're going to ask me a straight question about whether I'd rather watch somebody else...
let's just go, move on.
Please, continue.
Moving on.
For anyone listening to this after the fact, just DM me and I will pass this along.
No.
Well, it feels that my line then fits right in. Richard, oh my God, I'm getting pulled over. Everyone, just pretend to be normal.
Mom.
I'd like to dedicate this to my grandpa who showed me these moves. Pageant MC. Aw, that is so sweet. Is he here? Where is your grandpa right now? In the trunk of our car.
Dwayne, you know what? Fuck beauty contests. Life is one fucking beauty contest after another. School, then college, then work. Fuck that. And fuck the Air Force Academy. If I want to fly, I'll find a way to fly. You do what you love and fuck the rest.
Frank, have I mentioned that I'm the preeminent Proust scholar in the U.S.?
Olive, do you? Oh, I should save this one for you, Christine. Oh, do you want to do this? I was going to say, Olive, do you eat ice cream? Miss California. Yes, my favorite is chocolate cherry Garcia, except technically, I think it's a frozen yogurt.
I have Richard. I feel sorry for you. Frank, you do? Richard, sarcasm is the refuge of losers. Frank says, it is? Really? Richard, sarcasm is losers trying to bring winners down to their level, and that's step 4 in the program. Frank, thank you for opening my eyes to what a loser I am. How much do I owe you for those pearls of wisdom? Richard, oh, that one's on the house. Sheryl, guys, stop it. Frank, he started it.
Sheryl, after Frank tried to commit suicide, I'm so glad you're still here. Frank, well, that makes one of us.
Grandpa, listen to me. I got no reason to lie to you. Don't make the same mistake I made when I was young. Fuck a lot of women, kid. Not just one woman, a lot of women. It sounds like something my dad would have told me.
Olive, taking off her headphones, and Grandpa suddenly puts a pause to his ongoing swearing. What are you guys talking about? Grandpa, politics.
Not much better. Anything left, Mom?
I have Frank. Actually, Olive, a la mode in French translates as in the fashion. A la mode. Mode is derived from the Latin modus, or due or proper. Frank, shut up.
Pageant official Jenkins, outraged at Olive's talent act. What is your daughter doing? Richard, she's kicking ass. That's what she's doing. And
I have one more. Frank sings, what dinner? What, you don't talk anymore? And Dwayne shakes his head no. Frank says, why not? And he rolls his eyes. Frank says, you can talk, but you choose not to. Dwayne points at the picture of Nietzsche. Frank says, is that Nietzsche? You don't speak because of Friedrich Nietzsche? Dwayne walks out. Frank says, far out.
Richard, there's 2 kinds of people in this world. There's winners and there's losers. Okay? You know what the difference is? Winners don't give up.
That is some toxic behavior.
Oh, yes.
All right. Does anybody have any?
You could bear... No, I'm out, but I really looked for quotes that had to do with that stupid 9 points strategy.
God.
Yeah.
And couldn't find anything. Nobody was publishing anything about that, which only leads me to believe that it was destined to be a failure.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move to the Stanley rubric. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out. So 2006 to 2011. What is the legacy? Well, excuse me, from 2011 to today, then. What is the legacy of this film as shared between 2 separate yet equal groups, the audience and the industry? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go first. For the industry, I have a 5, and this is why. First off, Steve Carell got really motivated and got established that he could do dramatic work. Even though he didn't do it again for a while, but he did a lot of films after this, more or less, based on the fact that he did this one role. I remember when I saw it, seeing Steve Carell in a dramatic role. I mean, is this supposed to be funny? And I think it changed the perception. At the same time, it revived Alan Arkin's career. It also netted him a Best Supporting Actor win. I think that it furthered, at least gave opportunities for both Greg Kinnear and Toni Collette to have continued success in films. They had been successful before. I think this continued on their career. And I think it really was the establishment of both Paul Dano and Abigail Breslin as actors in what's more. I know Abigail Breslin's been more a television actress since, as she's gotten older. She's done a lot of different things, but she's been predominantly on television. And Paul Dano has done a series of things that I think really started with his performance in this film. So you combine those individually, if you were to take 1 or 2 of them, this would be a 4. But when you combine that many things together, it's a 5 for the industry. For the public, this is a film that's not thought about anymore. It's kind of just died out in the last 20 years. I don't hear anybody talk about it. I don't hear anybody really discuss it. I'm going to go with a 2 for the public on that. So I'm at a 7 overall.
Okay. I'm just going to wholeheartedly disagree with you on the industry portion of it. Greg Kinnear's career mostly stopped after this point, as did Toni Collette's. They're still doing stuff, but they're not like headlining things. They're not nearly in as many memorable movies. This is like kind of the tail end for both of them until they kind of have. Toni Collette has kind of come back in the last couple of years where she's more in stuff that people have seen. Now, Alan Arkin had a career resurgence. I'll grant you that. And I think that has a little bit to do with the fact that he won an Oscar more than it has to do with his personal like effect and career. But once you get that Oscar, it comes with it a lot more opportunities and some other stuff. Dano has been somebody that like industry people know, but it's not like he's carved out this like great wide name recognized career. Like if we asked mom randomly, who the hell is Paul Dano? We'd have to remind her what she's seen him in. He is not a household name. So it's not like I want to say there's anything to that. And Steve Carell. Steve Carell's dramatic work didn't really take off until he did Foxcatcher. What really helped Steve Carell's career is not Little Miss Sunshine, which, yes, is a box office darling. $8 million budget, over $100 million made, bunch of Oscar nominations and a win, especially when it got nominated for Best Picture when it was still only 5 nominees. I mean, that's a big deal for a small independent movie like this out of Sundance. But let's be honest, The Office has a lot more responsibility to do with Steve Carell's name recognition and his acting career and all the other opportunities that he wanted to do. Whether it's comedy or drama or whatever else. Just because he did this one role does not mean that he necessarily begot other things. It was that people know who Steve Carell is, so let's put him in other stuff. And he kind of willed himself into doing some other roles because, like most comedy actors, even after a while, you just kind of get tired of doing the same stuff. And he'd basically been doing the same slapsticky character for The Office and 40-Year-Old Virgin and everything he'd kind of done up to that point. He wanted to do something else. So he eventually went into some dramatic roles. And I think now he's kind of settled into, I mean, he hasn't really made that transition to be whatever the supporting character, the dad, the grandpa roles that he probably should be quite yet. But he's kind of gotten to that stage of his career if he really wanted it. But he also has made a ton of money, I'm sure, from The Office. So he doesn't really need to work. But Abigail Breslin, she gets a lot of opportunities in other roles, but nothing that's like memorable from this movie. So I have to only go with it a 4. I think you top out at a 4, even though everybody here is somebody that you recognize if you're like an industry level person, but it's just not somebody that, it's not like somebody's career was made off of being in this movie the same way that like Harrison Ford was made by being in Star Wars or then eventually becoming Indiana Jones. Like, there are degrees or varying degrees of how that separates. So I have a 4 there, and I agree with your 2 on the public because this is a movie that probably only industry people have likely seen since 2006, and I just don't see a lot of people picking it up or it being like on cable regularly or something else where it's still around and hanging around in the ether. So I have a 6. Whomever would like to go.
Okay, I'll go. I have for industry, I have a 4. Well, for the reasons we've said, it did certainly launch some careers. I'm just looking at Toni Collette's filmography here, right? I mean, of course, she had Sixth Sense, she had Muriel's Wedding, like beforehand, which are kind of like iconic roles. But there's not a lot of other stuff that I've seen before this one, and there's a ton of stuff afterwards. But yeah, it's not her necessarily leading it, apart from Hereditary, which I have not seen because I will not watch that. Oh my God. Are you crazy? I've read the synopsis. That's enough. But yeah, she's kind of like, she's had Mickey 17 last year. Not the best part of that, but it's kind of like she's working regularly and she's doing good work, and it's a lot of character actress roles. Yeah.
Right.
Steve Carell, yes, can argue about what actually was the launchpad for his career. Paul Dano, yeah, I mean, in the industry, he is established. You said it yourself, Tom, he's not maybe everybody knows who Paul Dano is, like the general public, but the industry knows and respects him apart from a certain director. And how many mentions of that have we got so far? Yeah, and I'm looking at the directors and things that have been thrown at me, like Battle of the Sexes. Okay, fine. Nobody saw that movie, I don't think.
Actually, three of us did in the theater.
Okay, great. Good for you. I did. Fine. Well done.
It was fine.
It was fine. And while you can say, okay, there's been very similar films to this, like, hey, cool, quirky family dramas. Was this the more influential one, or what was? So I'll say 4 for the industry. Obviously, another example of Sundance being a good launchpad for a well-loved movie that went on to success. Now, the general public, I thought this was also going to be a beloved film that people knew. I'm like, I know so many people who've seen this film because I know they've seen it. And I asked them, and I said, right, I'm doing a podcast on Little Miss Sunshine, retro podcast. What do you think? They're like, oh, was that the one with the girl with the glasses? I remember a girl with big glasses. And I remember, was there a beauty pageant? Didn't the grandpa die? Oh, I think she was like giving herself a pep talk. And the recollections were so vague. Like, they knew they'd seen it. They knew they'd enjoyed it. They said this as well. They could not remember. And almost none of them said anything about the last scene at the beauty pageant. They were like, I think maybe there was like a talent show. Don't remember much about that. So that brought my score on what I was thinking was going to be like a 3.5 to a 4, because I thought it was like a beloved film. I have to remember, it's not just me, right? Yeah, so I've taken that down to a 2.5 for the public.
And I'm not going to wax poetic about the industry myself. I agreed. I have a 4.0, and I also have a 2 for the public. And in talking to people about this film, I had the same experience, Heather. And in talking with my 2 daughters, they hated this film because of the last scene, because it was so cringy. And one of the daughters came into the room yesterday when we were watching. It was just like, I have to leave. I can't stand this film. So I don't think a lot of people like it. So if they saw it, they didn't like it very much. So I gave it a 2. So together, I also have a 6.
I had a 6.5.
I mean, not to jump the gun, but the audience scores on this one are relatively high. So I think both of my
people
sisters
like
are just
it, I think.
Weird.
I don't think they are. They have totally different personalities, and both of them hated the film.
Yeah, well,
yes, but there are daughters.
I didn't hate it. It's not a favorite. And if I don't ever happen to watch it again,
Okay.
So
one of the daughters, my elder of the 2 younger sisters, really doesn't seem to care for anything that wasn't produced by Disney or has some type of like singing in it. So, and if those 2 things cross, then it's like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever made.
Or it's some derivative of Legally Blonde.
That's like the one outlier, but we'll get to that later on this year when we cover Legally Blonde with her on that episode. Actually, both of them. And the other one, she gets her nose turned up at such the weirdest things. She hates Fargo. She hates The Departed. Like, she gets these ideas in her head, and she just like, if it's not served up to me on a plate, if I can't understand the movie immediately, write it off completely. Any ambiguous ending, she is out on a movie. So yes, I can completely understand why they hate the movie. Because it's not about the dance or the competition. It's not a sports movie. Nobody's supposed to win. It's supposed to be about bonding. And that's too ambiguous. Much like the hot dog fingers and Everything Everywhere All at Once, which we know.
I just hope she doesn't listen to this podcast.
I don't care if she does. I don't care if anybody does. I don't say anything on mic that I wouldn't tell anybody in person.
I know. Moving on.
But yes, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Mom's favorite movie of that year. Okay.
I have no words.
That is a 6.38 average between the 4 of us. Great decimal work there. Let's move to impact and significance. This is a measurement within the initial 5 years, so 2006 to 2011. What is the impact and significance of this movie as shared between the same 2 equal yet separate groups, the audience and the industry. On this one, had a low budget, was a very hot commodity out of Sundance. I think it set the record at the time for distribution, or a buyer, like the record for most paid for a single movie to be distributed or something to that effect. And it went on to gross a lot of money relative to its budget, even though it finished I want to say it was somewhere in the 50s that I recall from earlier in the episode. It was nominated for several things in an era, again, when comedies don't really get nominated. I think this is one of the few that I can recall in the last 20, 25 years that got any sort of significance. Did have at least 2 Oscar wins of significance here. So I'm going to give that a 4.5 on the industry. Then we can throw in that Steve Carell had this moment and helped spur the film along. Dano kind of did his thing. You had the resurgence from Arkin. So it's not like anybody other than the 2 lead parents really were damaged by this movie. If anything, they were assisted. And then from the public standpoint, again, it made a certain amount of money, but over $100 million compared to everything else that was coming out that year. It finished in the 50s. I'll give it some credit because I think a lot of film and industry people saw it, but that's a 3 for me. So I have a 7.5.
I also have an industry of 4.5. And for the public, I went with a 4. I think it's better than a 3 because for a small independent film to have that level of success. And then I also looked up the DVD or rental numbers. They were quite substantial. It made another $500 million, I think, in rentals. So
that seems quite.
Excuse me, not 500. $50 million in rentals.
Okay, that extra zero makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean it was not a small amount. I mean, this is a film that a lot of people rented. I think it was probably one of the bigger rentals for that period of time when it was released. So I went with a 4 for the public.
Is there an accepted source of rental publication, or where you go to in the same way that Box Office Mojo is the accepted source for most box office numbers?
There really isn't. I think this was a number that was released by Blockbuster.
Okay.
Which would have been the primary or the largest distributor of rentals at the time.
I mean, we're going to increasingly get into an era, and I hate to take this digression here from the category for a moment, but where stuff that's released on streaming has no box office. So we're going to have some, if we cover Roma in the near future or something to that effect, where it was released only on Netflix, and it was before they gave public data available. I don't know how the heck we're going to mention or quantify that for this category.
I know, and we're going to have a very difficult time with Netflix because Netflix doesn't want to release their name.
Well, they're doing it now. They've been doing it for about a year and a half or so, but that doesn't go back to 2019 when The Irishman was on Netflix.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So you have an 8.5?
Yes.
All right. Ladies?
Okay. Well, for the industry, I think we're all pretty aligned here. I also have a 4.5. It had you already said, it had its 4 Oscar nominations, its 2 wins. It was recognized by BAFTA, by SAG, by Independent Spirit, etc. It had the festival buzz, etc., etc. So the impact on careers, which was at times immediate. I mean, and Paul Dano had There Will Be Blood the year after. I'm sure he was already cast, but, he was continuing that trajectory. Yeah, so I have 4.5 on that. I think only really the directors where you can't say there was an immediate jump or anything. And interestingly, it was the only film that year that didn't get a director nomination but was in Best Picture. Yeah. So 4.5. General public, I'm also going to be higher, and I'm going to stay fairly high because to me, what I was hearing as well from people I asked, they'd seen it a long, long time ago. So that's telling me that it was probably potentially in that 5-year time frame. And you already mentioned the box office, fairly decent success. People were watching it. People were watching on, at home, on HBO, whatever, people do remember the scenes. There are certain scenes that they remember and can recall from back then once you tell them about it. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. So it's stuck there somewhere. It's just not gone over perhaps that 5-year trajectory. So I will also say a 4 for the public. Yes. So 8.5.
And as far as I'm concerned with the industry outside of, some of the Academy Awards, it wasn't anything special. So I have a 3.0 right in the middle kind of. And then overall, I also have a 3.0 because it wasn't that special in its message or what it impacted, even with its financial success. And people just don't remember a lot about it and don't rewatch it. So I have a 3.0. So for 6 overall.
You guys really are not helping the math any. This is a 7.63 average between the 4 of us.
Rolls off your tongue.
Yeah.
That's why you have a calculator.
It is. Novelty. This is a measure of a split category between anything original about the film and its execution about anything in regards to the film. So 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Heather, let's start with you here.
Oh, no. Okay.
That's what you love
right.
to hear.
I know. I love starting things off. Okay. So it's always really hard because you never remember, okay, what came first, what influenced what, etc. It does feel very fresh. It's one of the first things that I do remember watching in terms of this kind of a quirky indie family bonding thing. Juno was the year after. There's been ones since. I think the ideas as well, bringing in heavier themes, but in that comedic way of presenting it. It's been done before, but this one does it a lot of. It's doing it in a slightly different way, perhaps, and a different kind of quirky. It's you can't really compare it to The Apartment, for example, which has also got very heavy themes, but is supposedly a comedy. So it's very colorful, it's very bright, etc., etc. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of originality, I mean, I don't think it's going to be massively original, just because we have seen it before, we've seen it since. So yeah, I'll say a 3.5 on ideas and themes. Because we've also seen family dynamics and family bonding and stuff like that before as well. They do it well, but so which brings me to execution, and I think it's done very well. So I'm going to say a 4.5 for execution. I think performances are great. I think the script, I will come to this when we talk about classicness. There's parts of the script that I probably have issues with. There's parts that don't necessarily work so well for me. I'm not a great fan of the whole cringe of the talent show, or I don't like the scene so much with the police pulling them over. That just seems to go beyond all realistic presentation of what would happen more than anything else for me. But the performances, the script is great. I do actually like the colorfulness, and I really do like the way that they present these deeper themes in that kind of lighter way, but still that it hits home and you understand what they're getting at. So there we go. I'm going to say, what did I say for the ideas? 3.5 and 4.5. 8.
Okay. And don't worry, I won't put you on the spot again.
No, it's fine. Anything else, I would have been fine. Novelty, I was like, I feel unprepared on Novelty.
I would say originality on this one, it is a little bit repackaged, but I think it's somewhat novel, like in its conception. Yes, you're having a road trip movie, you're having a bonding movie, you're having a family road trip movie, but it's got enough real life quirkiness inserted into it, especially with like them having to push the van and all of the weird stuff that ensues with that. The random thing with Alan Arkin and then having to sneak the body out through the hospital. There's enough pieces in this that's irreverent to itself that makes it separated from some of its peers, even within this kind of road trippy subgenre. So I'm going to give that a 4. On an execution level, I have this at a 4.5. It's not a perfectly executed movie by any stretch, but it's endearing to me enough. And most of the writing and or acting performances are good to great within this movie that I can give it a pass on some of its other things. Like the direction and the cinematography on this are fine. They're not like anything huge. So I have an 8.5.
Go ahead.
Well, as far as novelty, I like the idea that it was a multi-generational, multi-family with in-laws and outlaws, and I don't think that too much of that particular bringing together of multi-generational in a road trip has been done. So that was a little bit novel for me. And I think that everybody could relate to one person, at least one person in the group. So, and the fact that they brought it so the acting was done in such a way that you could feel what the characters were feeling and thinking. For me, maybe not so much Grandpa, but the remainder of the characters. I've, tried to get a business up and running, right? So I can feel for the dad and his thought process, and the mom having issues with relationships with her children. Of course, I can relate to that. Mental health issues, we deal with those every single day in our business. And so I see and I feel all of that. So for me, the novelty was a 3.0. I liked it, but it wasn't like crazy creative. As far as the execution, I think it did a really good job. So I have a 3.5 for that, for a total of 6.5.
Originality, I have a 4. There was a certain aspect that was Ishtar-ish.
Is that supposed to be a
as far
compliment?
as being a road. But I liked Ishtar. So no, it's the campiness of the buddy or the travel movie. That was kind of what I was going at. Execution, again, I thought it was a 4.5. So I agreed with you, Tom, as far as the scoring. I think that it's not a perfect movie, but it was done well and made an impression, and it was not. I think it deserves higher marks as a result of the execution. So I'm at a 9.5 overall.
So that is a 7.88 average between the four of us. Again, decimals. Classicness. This is a measure of how well the film has aged or not. I mean, it's been about 20 years, so this is fairly distant to be able to look back at it objectively and say whether it's had some moments where it's not as good or not. And so often this category is not black and white. It lives in the gray and the nuances. So we turn to our nuance correspondent, Dana.
All right. Let me get the negative aspects out of the way first. Little too homophobic. Well, I think so, a little. Not as much as it could have been. Let's put it that way.
For 2006, I think this is actually pretty forward.
No, okay, but are we talking about it in 2006 or are we talking about it in the present?
That's a fair point, but I certainly don't have any derogatory marks for that. Frankly...
I gave it a very minimal amount down.
Okay.
Just, probably a 0.5, okay? What I do give it positives for is the following. The satire of the stupidity of children's beauty contests. That gives a full point up. The pointing out that how inappropriate and how horrible it is to body shame is another full point up. The fact that we have dysfunctional families still trying to support each other the best they can with their own proclivities, another point up. And then lastly, the realistic aspect or acknowledgement of mental health and what is involved with somebody who contemplates suicide. And ultimately, what you come to realize when you think about it is Steve Carell's character is attempting suicide because he perceives that the only relationship he has deserted him and he has nothing to live for. And then as a result of this, the fact that he is thrust into this situation, he realizes that there are other people in his life that he can rely on and that he has some bonding with that actually gives him an opportunity to have some hope moving forward. And so I'm giving that another full point up. So from the 6, I'm 3 full points up, 1/2 point back. I'm at an 8.5 overall.
Okay, I'm not going to take too much more because you merited out most of the points on this one. I have nothing that I'm really going to mark this off for. I know that for some people, I mean, yes, you could say the beauty pageant portion is really cringeworthy, but it's satirizing it, so you actually gave it points up for that. I'm going to call that neutral. I think the body positivity sections of this for little girls was important enough for me to give it a point up for that. And you've kind of won me over enough to at least give, I don't want to say like a full point, but I'll give a half point to the Steve Carell character overall. So I'm going to go with a 7.5 here.
Yeah. Echoing everything you've said about the body shaming or body positivity. Already mentioned it enough. I found that very, very strong, how they dealt with that across multiple scenes. Another thing we haven't talked about really at all, so I'll just bring it up here as something that I'm sure we've all seen. Frickin' motivational speakers. Oh my God.
Well, okay.
I don't relate to Richard, but the pain of having to listen to someone like that all the time. One time at work, they paid somebody to come in and talk to us about resilience, and it was just a generic 10 slides. They hadn't, but they probably do to every single company. No, we've geared this towards your company. No, you haven't. You have literally just swap out the name of the company and you're presenting, you're saying, let's call it a 9-point program about how to be resilient and cope with stress. It had nothing to do with our daily lives. They clearly had done no research beforehand. We're just going to present it to you and you are the problem. And this is how you can succeed. And then they tried to make it compulsory the next year. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. And I said, I'm just not listening to this. This is a pile of rubbish. I went through a couple of years before, I'd gone through a company bankruptcy where everybody get fired. The CEO is in jail. The COO is on the run and is a Russian spy. Don't talk to me about resilience. I was getting death threats. Don't talk to me about resilience. Okay. Right. So I'm like, I think I should do the presentation. But so I said, I am not joining this again. But we all have experienced somebody like Richard. And it's just his introduction, he's doing this massive presentation and there's like 6 people there. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight that because we haven't spoken about that. So that's another something that we can all relate to today and does not age because they're all out there. In fact, there's more of them than ever before, and it's getting more and more ridiculous.
Well, yeah, because now you have the TikTok influencer generation.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say, they're all on social media now and not just standing in a lecture hall in front of 6 people. Anyway.
We should show Mom the scene from Magnolia with that personal life guru. Yeah, see what happens.
Yes, it's all in the same cinematic universe, quite clearly, yes. Okay, so yeah, as I found the body positivity, I found that great. I found that handled really, really well. I found mental health issues handled very well. I'd like to maybe see a little bit more, but I think with the closure with Dano and him on the board, what we kind of, saw that I think he's going to be okay. I am wondering about the dated elements, like a lot of what Alan Arkin was saying with his, kind of homophobic wording. But I think all of that at the end of the day was just to build his character in a way and to show what he's like that's how he is. And is it dated, or would they portray a character like him exactly like that nowadays? And possibly they would. One thing, I was watching it with a 12-year-old and we got as far as a dinner scene, and then Abigail Breslin says, oh, you were dating a boy? That's silly. And then the 12-year-old says to me, what is she talking about? That's perfectly normal. I'm like, okay, first of all, you have a very different upbringing, so who knows what you were told was normal or not. And secondly, also she's 7, she's younger than you, and thirdly, this was 2006, so and they're in Albuquerque, so anyway, so all that, I'm going to say I'm tying between a 7.5 and an 8. I think I'm just going to say an 8 because I do like the things that they do well. They do very, very well.
And I don't know if there's a whole lot left to say. I think that my score reflects how cringy I felt with both like the dinner conversation, with the dance moves, with some of the things that were said and presented. I have a 7 for I don't know. It's still a feel good movie, but there was just so much that made me either shake my head or just cringe at the thought of the 7-year-old being exposed to it. It just, I don't know. So anyway, my score is a 7.0.
So that's our most reasonable set of decimals to this point. We have a 7.75 average because 3 of us had an 8 and 1 of us had a 7. So, oh no, excuse me. I think my math's off because Dad, didn't you have an 8.5?
I did.
Higher,
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to have to rerun this. So give me 1 second here. Please vamp away.
Do, 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 do.
Yeah, it's a 7.88, not a 7.75.
Oh, we
And
were
for
doing
that,
so well.
you win a box of Rice-A-Roni the San Francisco treat.
Thank you, Dad. Okay, so moving to rewatchability, insert your own subjective test here. Mom, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is not a movie that I'm just going to run out and try to rewatch. It's good. If somebody said, this is what we're watching, I think I would give them my opinion and say it's worth a watch, but I have a 4.0.
Okay.
Out of 10?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm a lot higher. Shall I just keep going? So I hadn't seen this in a long time. And then I rewatched it for this and I was like, oh, and I get to rewatch it again tomorrow. And then the 12-year-old wanted to watch it. I was like, yes, we can watch it again. I was like really rediscovered this little gem. I know I'd enjoyed it. And I know that also something that if it was on, I would probably just stay watching it. I think it's one of those films where you get kind of Shawshanked a bit into it. It's on, you catch it in the middle and you watch it to the end. My personal opinion. Okay. And I know we need to weigh up not just personal opinion, it's what we think of others. But quite frankly, everybody I spoke to was like, oh my God, I haven't seen that forever. Oh, and I remember these things. Oh, I think I might watch it again this weekend. Oh, great. You've given me an idea of something to watch. I know I enjoyed it. So I'm at an 8.5.
Okay. So I'm not sure, and forgive me, I've tried to take more of the objective perspective on this that encompasses more than just my own opinion on this since the beginning of last season, and try and go back to our roots of being a little bit more objective about the rewatchability as opposed to my personal feelings. I don't know if my mother actually went to East Germany instead of West Germany, as she claims when she was an exchange student, but she's certainly acting like an East German judge during this episode. She has been.
She's the hater on it for sure.
She's been lower on every single score than the rest of us. Like the rest of us are herded like a point ahead of wherever she's at. I have this as an objective 7.5. It's an easy 95 minutes. It's comedic. It's got some likable people. Like, most of the people in here. I think you could sell the random person on watching this. Yes, there are some cringy moments, and I don't think everybody's going to like rewatch it repeatedly. But I think you could probably say, hey, there's this movie with Steve Carell and with Greg Kinnear and Alan Arkin. Have you seen it before? It's 95 minutes. Oh, yeah, we'll be willing to put that on. Yeah, it's kind of a darkish comedy, but it's pleasant to watch. So I have a 7.5.
For me, deep down, I would love to ultimately be, without the snorting heroin, Alan Arkin grandpa.
What do you mean, would like to be? Other than being a grandpa?
Well, that's just it. I mean, I would like to be that guy that sits there and pontificates inappropriately about things in life. Anyway, as far as rewatchability, okay, I was shocked. When I watched this, I didn't think that much of it. I for whatever reason, I did not have a high opinion of it at the time. But rewatching this, it's a much better film than I remembered. I thought it was funny. It's something I'm going to recommend. I wouldn't turn it off if it was available. Am I going to regularly rewatch this? Probably not, but I'm not going to turn it off if I find it or if I'm watching a few minutes of it here or there, or if somebody wants to watch it while I'm there. So I'm going to go with about a 6.5 simply because it's just under the arc of what I would normally have in a pattern of rewatchable films that I would consider on my list. So I'm at 6.5. So how is that on the math?
That's a 6.63 average between the four of us.
Absolute insanity that I am the high person in the rewatchability for a comedy. I would just like to stress this.
And normally on my rewatchability, I have really high numbers because the movies that I'm usually on with, I really enjoy. This one's eh.
Well, you told me to select some stuff that might challenge you this year.
Yes, so this is what you get.
Well, this is what you get.
You're joining us for Memento later in the year, Christine?
I don't remember everything I've got coming up.
She's not back till July. She's got like back-to-back weeks with, I want to say, like the Princess Diaries, where she's joining my littlest sister, and then she's coming on for Alice in Wonderland, the animated version, not the Johnny Depp Tim Burton
that's a
weirdo
trip.
thing.
Yeah, thank goodness.
That'll be her first episode with Kieran. So, whatever. But anyway, so to go to audience score on this one, as I mentioned before, the audience scores on this are relatively good compared to apparently the audiences of my sisters, which is much more anecdotal. We had an 87% for Google users and a 91% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.9. So, to repeat the categories and all of these lovely decimals: Legacy, 6.38. Impact and Significance, 7.63. Novelty, 7.88. Classicness, 7.88. Rewatchability, 6.63. And audience score, 8.9, giving us a final total of 45.3, and currently placing it on our list. Ironically enough, just behind Magnolia and ahead of Monty Python and the Holy Grail at 153.
That's perfect.
So I just mentioned Magnolia.
Yes.
And Heather has previously been on twice, one of which was for the Holy Grail. So
No, it was Life of Brian.
Oh, that's right.
I said I'll
Life
come
of
for the
Brian.
Holy Grail rewatch. Yeah. Or revisit. Yeah.
I'll let you decide which one was the better film. I know which one I would go with. But anyway. All right. So if you have any questions for us, any comments on our scoring, as usual, you can find us at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on any of our socials at GMOTepodcast, or you can visit us at our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMOTepodcast. Let's quickly move to some remaining questions. If there is a funeral for Grandpa, in which state is it?
It's in New Mexico in Albuquerque.
The family's going to be willing to...
Interned.
Well, they took him, and I thought that they were shipping him back home or to the funeral home.
You would think so, but that's an extra added expense, and his business deal just fell through.
Yeah, well, what choice do they have? They probably have to go in debt for the funeral like anybody else would.
Well, Grandpa had enough money to pay for assisted living facility,
Right.
so he probably had enough money to cover his funeral expenses, which were, as I already in the film indicated, pre-arranged.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
Fair
right.
enough.
I remember. He said that, yeah.
All right. Does Richard have a successful lecture series?
They have some pretty stupid yahoos doing these and who publish books. Eventually he'll get on because, hell, you can self-publish and sell enough copies to make a somewhat of enough money to make yourself pliable or plausible or however you want to put it. in this series. I mean, it's amazing how many of these people are out there at this point in time.
Yeah. He could become a TikTok star now.
Well,
He'd find his audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would have needed, though, to have started this well before TikTok became a thing, though.
Mm.
Like, this is the
Yeah.
days where Facebook was just starting to become a thing. 2006, I think, is when I joined Facebook, and that was, like, the only thing at that time, other than MySpace, which theoretically that still exists, but
Yes, it does.
I couldn't log into it.
I've seen actually people on LinkedIn who publish their MyFace page.
My face page? MySpace.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we haven't done is like shout out Sheryl, because she is supporting that whole family, quite frankly, while
Yeah.
Richard just goes off and tries to do whatever. Like, she has that line where she says that she's basically like, yeah, it's just her money. She goes, it would be nice if you were contributing at some point. So
Yeah, but
Shout
also
out
she
Sheryl.
allows
Good
him
for
to
Sheryl.
like put this toxic behavior of winners and losers like into his
Yeah.
children.
yeah. And she just goes, Richard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
She's doing her best.
how long does Uncle Frank stay with the Hoovers?
Want to or need to?
That's actually a good delineation.
Hmm.
I think the question I had it structured is how long does he have to stay with them? Which I don't know how long legally.
I don't think he has to stay with them any longer than when he returns. I think that's different than how long he wants to stay with them. Because I think by that point in time, he's feeling he's part of something again and is able to rejoin life. And I think he may want to
visits
stay
often,
longer.
maybe. Yeah.
He could take Grandpa's room.
No,
Yes,
because
he
he's not
could.
allowed to stay in a room by himself.
Yeah. Maybe that would be better.
And my last question here. Of the four primary actors in the movie, Arkin, Dano, Kinnear, and Carell, who should have won an Oscar regardless of leading or supporting? Because I think you could probably make an argument for multiple, depending on where your line is drawn, either them all being, with I guess the exception Arkin, I wouldn't say he's leading, but the other ones you could make an argument are leading and the other ones are supporting, or however you want to do that. But of the four primary, and I guess this kind of defers to who you may or may not have had as your best performance, I would say Carell.
I think, yeah, I agree with Carell, but on the lead front, that I would say that Kinnear is the only one that I would define as a potential lead in it, even though Carell is the one who's kind of like our narrative surrogate, our audience surrogate in a way. Kinnear is the one with the arc. He's the, I think he's probably the one with the most screen time apart from Abigail Breslin. But yeah, it's irrelevant. But if we are defining a lead performance, I think it might only be him, and Carell is the one that I would give it to.
Part of the reason that I make that contestation as I did early on with I don't want to get into lead or supporting is because based on my own criteria of this is one of these films that kind of plays with it, where I say you have to be in 50%
exactly.
of the film and there has to be a scene from your perspective. There's one for Dano, there's one for Carell, there's one for Kinnear. All three of them, in my opinion, could be lead. Grandpa's the only one where he's not in 50% of the film, so he couldn't qualify.
Just as an aside, Chris and I took a cruise for our 25th anniversary, and on the cruise ship that we went on through the Panama Canal was representatives of Second City TV, or Second City, okay? And Second City was on there, and they were showing clips from various performances that were done either at Second City Chicago or Second City Toronto. And they had a scene that was done by Steve Carell. And it was all of the people that were members of Second City that were on the touring group on the cruise ship who just kept raving about how gifted of an actor Steve Carell really was. And this was something that everybody at Second City had been saying, that he, most of them were comedic actors. Steve Carell was a gifted actor who just did comedy. And they kept commenting about how that was. And having seen that scene and then seeing some of the performances after, it's clear to me that this guy has a lot more acting chops than what people gave him credit for. So to that extent, I would say he should have been at least nominated
Any other remaining questions?
No, I went through all my litany of legal issues. Yeah.
I'm just waiting on the question queen. She usually has something.
Oh, well, no, because I figured I'm on this episode, so
Okay.
you know.
That's just fine.
I provide them for other ones.
All right. But we want to thank both of our guests for being with us today. Again, Heather, please remind everybody what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yep, Heather J. Stewart on the socials and also on Letterboxd. My Letterboxd reviews are on the Revisionist Almanac page, though, where there will also be more of my content on that podcast coming up and number of guest spots as well. And yeah, just generally search my name on Spotify or other podcast platforms, and there's quite a lot there to listen to. Yeah.
So, remaining thoughts for the week, Dad? I mean, that's kind of difficult since we're pre-taping this a little bit ahead of time, but I guess Happy New Year, Happy New Season.
Yes. Same to you. I'm looking forward to 2026 in many aspects and ways. I think it's going to be an awesome year for us and for the office, for the podcast, for the family, everything. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm anxious to get going into it.
Right now, it is very cold in Wisconsin. It's not as cold right now today as it was the past couple of days, but I am looking forward to anything that is not white or freezing. But I will also say, and just a generic plug here at the end for this, I am looking forward to finally meeting most of your favorite Cinepodcasters group in person. And that has started to become more of a reality now as the calendar is turned. And for anybody out there who may be listening who's not a part of that, or I don't know how many people are coming into Michigan, and specifically Sault Ste. Marie and Lake Superior, I think it's State University, in early June, not July. Early June,
yes,
for our convention or conference or whatever we're putting together that is being done specifically with Adam St. John and 1001 Movies by One. I am looking forward to meeting everybody, hanging out, having a good opportunity. And Heather, if you're not able to make it, because right now coming to this country is not something I would suggest to most people, I completely understand, and hopefully we'll be able to get together at some point in the near future. But, you know,
I'm going to have massive FOMO if I don't come. It's just kind of, what does it mean sharing your social media handles? What does it mean providing full details of all close family members? What does that actually mean? So once I have a little bit more clarity in that, then yeah,
I fully understand.
I really love to be there.
We're living in a day in which the administration has done some questionable foreign relations activities, to say the least.
I will throw it out that one of the aspects of this endeavor in Sault Ste. Marie is that I'm informally appointing myself as entertainment director.
Okay, late night director. Let's go that way. Entertainment director might mean a different thing, but late night director, yes. Yeah, we'll go with that. Now, the only remaining outlier of question here is whether or not we can shame my mother into going with us.
I'm supposed to be in Europe at that time, so...
Yes, she is.
Christine, we can do our alternative program then. We'll do our European version.
There we go.
But anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for, I guess, staying with us now into our 7th season. We will be back again next week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week, for our 296th episode, we welcome back Ryan Luis Rodriguez of the One Track Mind and Reels of Justice pods to discuss City Lights from 1931, celebrating its 95th anniversary. Written and directed by Charlie Chaplin, cinematography by Roland Tetherow and Gordon Pollak. Music by Arthur Johnston and Alfred Newman, editing by Charlie Chaplin and Willard Nico. Starring Charlie Chaplin, Virginia Sheryl, Florence Lee, Harry Myers, and Al Ernest Garcia. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at runningduncanstudios.com or at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, or TikTok at the handle @CheapModePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ryan Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.